What if the world's most powerful airline had a glaring hole at the very center of its fleet, and the only aircraft built to fill it doesn't actually exist yet? That's exactly the situation Emirates finds itself in today. Ranked as the world's largest all-widebody carrier, Emirates has built an empire on giant jets, operating routes from 7-hour intercontinental hauls to short 90-minute Gulf hops, all without a single narrow-body aircraft in its mainline fleet. At the top sits the iconic Airbus A380, the double-deck super jumbo that carries over 500 passengers. Beneath it, the Boeing 777 covers the broader network, but somewhere between those two pillars lies a gap, a segment of routes that are too thin for the 777 yet too important to abandon. To fill that gap, Emirates needs a jet that simply has not been built. Welcome to the story of the Boeing 797. What is the Boeing 797? The Boeing 797, officially known as the new Midsize Airplane, or NMA, is a proposed twin-aisle jet designed to carry between 220 and 270 passengers over ranges of 4,500 to 5,000 nautical miles. Boeing has outlined two variants: the 797-7, with roughly 275 seats and a 4,500 nautical mile range, and the smaller 797-6, seating around 225 passengers with a reach of 5,000 nautical miles. It would sit precisely between the narrow-body 737 MAX and the long-haul 787 Dreamliner. First unveiled as a concept at the 2017 Paris Air Show, the design promised to borrow composite fuselage technology and advanced aerodynamics from both the 777 and 787. Industry analysts estimated it would require engines producing 40,000 to 50,000 pounds of thrust. Rolls-Royce withdrew from the engine competition in 2019, leaving CFM International and Pratt & Whitney as the remaining contenders. But then, in January 2020, Boeing hit pause, and the 797 has been frozen in limbo ever since. A market too big to ignore here is the number that keeps aviation strategists awake at night. The middle-of-market segment, the space between narrow-bodies and large wide-bodies, is projected to grow at 5.7% annually, compared to a global aviation average of just 3.4%. Analysts suggest this segment could require several thousand new aircraft over the next 2 decades. That is not a niche opportunity. That is a generational market shift happening in plain sight. Most airlines already have their answer. Airbus received type certification for the A321 XLR on July 19, 2024, and Iberia launched its inaugural commercial service between Madrid and Boston in November of that year. With a range of approximately 4,700 nautical miles, it immediately became one of the most capable narrow-body jets ever produced. United Airlines alone ordered 130 A321 NEOs and 50 A321 XLRs to replace aging Boeing 757s. The middle-of-market race is underway, and one major player is watching from the sidelines. You have a winner here, Emirates President Tim Clark to Boeing. Paris Air Show 2017. Why Emirates can't just buy a narrow-body. The A321 XLR is a remarkable aircraft, but Emirates will never order one. The airline has never operated a single-aisle jet in its modern fleet, and that is not an accident. Emirates' entire identity is built around the wide-body experience, its hub-and-spoke model, its premium cabin product, its ground infrastructure at Dubai International Airport. All of it was designed for wide-body jets. Nearly 2/3 of all Emirates passengers are connecting travelers, flowing through Dubai in large coordinated waves of arrivals and departures. Emirates has ordered 73 Airbus A350-900 aircraft to serve thinner medium-haul routes across Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Southeast Asia. These jets offer a 25% lower fuel burn than legacy widebodies, but even the A350-900 is a large aircraft. It does not fit the niche where a 222-270-seat twin-aisle jet would give. Emirates' widebody comfort at lower seat mile costs than the 777. The gap in the fleet remains stubbornly, frustratingly open. The strategic conflict at the heart of the story. Emirates President Tim Clark did not hide his admiration for the 797 concept when he saw it at the 2017 Paris Air Show. He called it optimized for low cost and fast turnarounds, praised its twin-aisle efficiency, and told Boeing directly, "You have a winner here." But in the same breath, he raised a caveat, one that cuts to the very core of this story. Clark was not questioning Boeing's engineering. He was questioning whether the 797 is actually built for the kind of airline Emirates is. The 797 is designed for efficiency on thinner routes, fewer seats, lower cargo volume, fast gate turnarounds. Those are virtues for a point-to-point carrier or a mixed-fleet airline trying to fill network gaps. But Emirates does not serve thin routes. It runs high-density corridors through one of the world's busiest connecting hubs, on aircraft configured to carry premium cabins, cargo, and transit passengers at enormous scale. The 797 would require Emirates to operate in a way it never has, and that tension has never been fully resolved. Boeing's crisis and the frozen program. Even if Emirates resolved its strategic doubts tomorrow, there is a more immediate problem. Boeing is simply not ready to build the 797. The 737 MAX crisis consumed the company's resources and credibility through 2019 and 2020, with the 777X still uncertified and Boeing carrying billions of dollars in debt. Launching a major new aircraft program is an enormous financial risk. Industry analysts now estimate Boeing will not formally launch the 797 before the early 2030s, with entry into service no earlier than 2032. In late 2024, Boeing announced a labor agreement committing to build its next new airplane in Washington state, reigniting speculation that the NMA might still move forward. But no aircraft type was specified. Meanwhile, Airbus has locked in hundreds of A321 XLR orders, securing the mid-range market for every carrier willing to operate a narrow body. The longer Boeing waits, the smaller the window becomes. Airlines like United, American, Delta, Alaska, and Qantas have all signaled interest in the 797, but for all of them, the A321 XLR remains a viable backup. For Emirates, there is no backup, a shape from the future, the blended wing body. While the 797 remains frozen in concept, a more radical solution is quietly advancing in the background, the blended wing body, or BWB. The idea dates back to the early 1920s, but serious modern research began in 1994 when NASA and McDonnell Douglas asked a bold question. What if you combined the aerodynamic advantages of a flying wing with the passenger capacity of a conventional airliner? That question launched decades of research, wind tunnel testing, and eventually the Boeing X-48 program. The core principle is elegant. Instead of a cylindrical fuselage being carried by wings, the entire aircraft becomes a single continuous aerodynamic surface. The numbers are staggering. A BWB reduces wetted surface area, the skin exposed to airflow, by roughly 33%. Compared to a conventional aircraft of similar capacity, its center body generates 31 to 43% of total lift, compared to just 12 to 13% for a traditional fuselage. Studies consistently show a 15 to 25% higher lift-to-drag ratio and fuel savings of up to 24% on comparable missions. Rear-mounted engines, shield noise. NASA simulations suggest reductions of 15 decibels or more compared to a 777 class aircraft. The potential is enormous. The engineering challenges are equally so. From theory to reality, what comes next? For decades, the BWB stayed trapped in the laboratory, proven in theory, stuck in the real world by pressurization challenges, complex flight controls, and certification hurdles that no one had ever attempted at passenger rotorcraft scale. That is beginning to change. In August 2023, the U.S. Air Force awarded Long Beach startup JetZero a $235 million contract to build a full-scale BWB demonstrator. A subscale model called Pathfinder received its FAA airworthiness certificate in March 2024 and has been flight tested at Edwards Air Force Base, ground. Testing of full-scale components is planned for April 2027, with a first flight targeted for September 2027. The two-band wing will dominate commercial aviation for the next 2 decades. The entire infrastructure, manufacturing base, and certification ecosystem was built around that shape. But the BWB is no longer a fantasy. It is an engineering program with a contract, a timeline, and test data. A 20 to 30% cut in fuel burn is not an incremental improvement. It is a generational leap. And as fuel costs rise and emissions regulations tighten, the pressure for that leap will only grow. The real question for the 797, for the BWB and for Emirates is not whether the future arrives, it is whether the industry moves before it is forced to. What do you think? Will Emirates eventually order the Boeing 797, or will they find another way to fill this gap? And is the blended wing body truly the future of commercial aviation, or is it still too far from the gate? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one, and your perspective helps shape what we explore next.